what's going on for this week and what's going on with Bitcoin. How high will Bitcoin go? First of all, there is an inverse correlation between DXY and Bitcoin, right? So this is why I always bring up DXY, because you may be wondering, well, what does the strength of the dollar have to do with Bitcoin? It does, because whatever the DXY does go down, when people take their money out of the dollar, what does that mean? They're buying something with it, right? So they usually buy risk-on assets like tech stocks and Bitcoin. You could clearly see the inverse relationship, right? And even though we were climbing down from its peak of like 115, we're not quite there back to where we want, and that would be around 80 something, below 100. We were getting very close at one point, right? But now we've crept up a little bit. But if DXY continues to go down, right, beyond 100 and down to 90s or 80s, only good things will happen to Bitcoin. As for DXY, for some of you guys, they're curious about DXY. We're trending down a little bit. If you look at the past week, it's we've been lower, but we also been higher. We're kind of going sideways, right? DXY is another indicator of how strong the dollar is, and people gravitate to the dollar whenever there's FUD and weakness, and we have seen DXY climb a little bit higher, but not too bad. So something else to pay attention to, but we haven't really seen it move in either direction for a couple weeks now. Just look at monthly RSI. Monthly RSI is coming out from bottom. Actually, in fact, we were at a point, the most oversold point from a monthly scale ever in Bitcoin's history. So think about that first of all, right? So if that happened, that means the recovery could be the fastest in Bitcoin's history too. The recovery could be tremendous. But this one is looking at the RSI crossover with the SMA 14, okay? And when you look at that, well, usually when things cross, that's usually when Bitcoin's coming out from bottom and good things happen, right? So there's that. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. But this is the one that I wanted to really talk about. I mean, I've shown stuff like this before, but I mean, just look at how uncanny our patterns right now versus 2019, right? Even though the scenario is different, even though we're in a very different macro environment, okay? Yeah, I realize all that, but still, you look at how Bitcoin fell from top, established a bottom, right? Then broke through the trend line. This is a multi-year trend line. This is not like a daily trend line, okay? We're talking about a multi-year trend line, right? And then what happens afterwards? You have a really good recovery. I remember when we went from 3,000 to 14,000, right? I was actually at Disney World when we hit 14,000. I was streaming from the pool. I remember that point vividly, right? But if you're looking at that same mark, which is the 618 Fibonacci level, that would put Bitcoin at 50,000 if we're following the same pattern, right? And this is why so many people think that realistically we could hit it as soon as like June or July maybe, because that's how fast we recovered in 2019. So can we repeat the same kind of recovery in 2023? It would be amazing. It would be amazing if it happened, despite the FUD, everything that we just gone through with the FTX collapse, Silvergate, and all this stuff, right? It would be amazing to see it happen. And here's the thing. It could happen because, like I just said, Bitcoin has never been this oversold, right? When we went down to 15,000, even though the price is higher than 3,000, but if you're measuring from top, we have never been this oversold. We had the longest drawdown time in Bitcoin's history. Who's to say we can't recover just as quick, if not even quicker than before, right? And then who knows? After we hit that point, we'll probably come down a little bit. And then after the halving event, who knows how high Bitcoin will be? 150,000, 200,000, 250,000? All we can do is guess at this point, right? But if we do follow that same recovery as 2019, things could move very, very, very quickly within the next 3 to 4 months. Okay? 3 to 4 months. Imagine that 50K by June or January. That would be crazy. And not be totally unexpected either. All right, and here's one that goes back even further, right? A little complicated, but I just showed you 2019. What about 2015? Same thing. After breaking through a multi-year trend line, which is down, when Bitcoin breaks through, good things happen. It's really that simple, right? When we break through, and all this is due to the halving event. In case you're wondering, well, why does it happen every 4 years, right? In case you don't know, it's due to the halving event. The halving event is where the number of Bitcoins being released or found per block is decreased in half every 4 years. That's why it's called a halving event. And eventually it'll get to a point where there is no more. Okay, we don't have to worry about that for quite some time. But the inflation rate is being cut in half every 4 years. Unlike the USD, which keeps on increasing forever, which means the buying power of your USD keeps decreasing every year, Bitcoin goes in reverse. Bitcoin makes it more scarce every 4 years, and there will be a set supply, right? Big difference. Big difference between USD and Bitcoin. And then lastly, I want to show you guys this about Bitcoin. The number of exchange deposits is getting really, really, really low. And whenever it gets really low, and this is only going back a month, but take a look. Before Bitcoin started coming up, right, the number of exchange deposits of Bitcoin fell down pretty hard. And this was when Bitcoin was hovering around 15, 16K, right? Then what happened, right? We saw that pretty good recovery up to 25,000. So take a look at exchange deposits right now. Very, very low once again, 1 month low. So does that mean we're setting up for the next leg up? Just like a month ago when we pumped up to 25,000. Could happen, but overall, we know that less and less people are depositing Bitcoin into the exchanges, and more Bitcoin are being withdrawn from exchanges. So that's why the exchange reserves keeps diving and keeps dropping down. And that leads to scarcity, and that's good. That's good.